I made some big changes and pivots at the beginning of 2023. Pivots and changes to my business, my offerings, my brand, but especially my content strategy. And 2023 really was the year for me to refine my repurposing process, to kind of expand and play around with new platforms. But most importantly, last year I was really focused and dedicated to showing up consistently online, something that I've struggled with for a very, very long time. So I really want to dive into what I learned in 2023, what I'm changing in 2024, and what some of my big goals are for the new year. Of course, in terms of content strategy. So diving right in, here are the things that I learned from a whole year of trying a new content strategy. So at the beginning of the year, I actually shifted my focus away from a lot of other platforms and producing content with them in mind and actually focused on YouTube. And I wanted to focus on YouTube because I want to grow my brand and brand awareness for the long term and in the long run. And instead, I didn't want to have to rely on platforms like Instagram, TikTok, Twitter that are so fast paced. Because honestly, I felt so burnt out with having to create a new TikTok video every day, having to create an Instagram post every day, and starting with those platforms in mind. It was really overwhelming. And to be completely honest with you guys, it was very hard for me to maintain consistency on those platforms day in and day out. So by focusing on YouTube, I was able to build and refine a system, a content system that helps me break down that one YouTube video that goes out a week into smaller pieces of content that will go on other platforms. And again, by focusing on YouTube first and creating a repurposing system, I was able to consistently produce high levels of content, a high amount of content, and show up on multiple platforms while honestly producing less. Because here's the thing is I focused on creating YouTube videos once a month. So I only had to show up for 4 to 5 videos. And then we can splice that video and break it down into so many different other things. And it was so much easier to produce that amount of content in that way. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with the saying of like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's a saying that I've always resonated with, that I understand. I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But I really put it into practice in 2023. And it's one of those things that I used to rely so heavily on my Instagram community or my TikTok community to help push my business forward. I'm like, I could just throw up a post and sell XYZ. And what I slowly started to realize is that's not a great strategy for the long term, and that I need to build a content strategy and a system that will work for me no matter what happens on these platforms or what happens to these platforms. So I focused most of my energy on YouTube, but there was also enough time and content that I could focus on growing my email newsletter. I could focus on showing up for my communities in other places like Threads or LinkedIn. And that way, I'm not so reliant on just one platform to grow my business. Remember, for the first few years of my business, I did not have this system. And I just want you to know that it's okay to start with just 1 or 2 platforms, but not always become so reliant on them. Make sure you're diversifying as you start to grow your content creation process. Okay, so what exactly am I going to change in 2024? So in 2023, I obviously wanted to shift my focus toward YouTube. But for me, the priority there was to lay a foundation, get the videos produced, figure out this system, and just get them out there. I wasn't so much focused on the numbers of things, and that's going to be my big shift in 2024, is that I'm going to focus on growing this channel now. Over the last couple of years, I've obviously used YouTube as a testing ground, like a playground. Last year, I got really, really consistent and hard hitting with it. And now as I'm starting to reach my 100 video mark, I want to take this platform even more seriously. Because from what I've learned, a lot of the YouTube experts out there, they're like, the first 100 videos aren't going to be the greatest. You need to get over that hump of the first 100 and then really focus in on refining your channel. And that's what I'm going to do. So this year, the focus is on growth, but mainly on YouTube, because I've completely given up on certain platforms last year, like Pinterest and Twitter. And to be honest, with Pinterest, it is just not my preferred platform, especially for my business. I know people that find great success over there. And, I've produced great Pinterest content for other small business owners. I know the power of it. But for me, in this season, I don't enjoy creating content over there, and it's really hard for me to repurpose some of this content to make sense on that platform. And here's the thing. Even though I work in social media, I work in content creation, there are certain platforms that I would just like to enjoy as a consumer, and Pinterest is one of those. I don't want to have to think about business when I'm scrolling Pinterest for inspiration. And I gave up on Twitter long before it became X, about halfway through last year. And honestly, I won't be going back to X ever. It was one of those platforms I could never really gain traction on, nor did I enjoy it, and the environment felt a little toxic. And it's just like I could not find like where I fit in the Twitter landscape. But I loved creating that written content. Like I thought that part was so fun. I just could not put the two puzzle pieces together. So after reviewing analytics, I think it was back in the summer with my content manager, we decided Twitter just was not a big priority and we kind of chopped it. But when Threads came on board, I enjoyed it so much. I'm not only having fun on the platform, I've created a system on how I'm repurposing a lot of my content to go out on Threads, so it's really low lift for me, but it's also a place where I'm having really great conversation. I'm seeing, honestly, some of my best engagement on Threads right now, and that is also because it's a newer platform. There's a lot of attention there right now, but I'm actually having fun. I'm enjoying it, which I never had on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. So that is, again, also going to be a change I'm making in 2024 is having a priority and like a shift focus towards Threads, again, with some of that written content that is really starting to catch on right now and gain some more popularity. And, it's just fun. It's just a fun platform to be on. And lastly, you might even be listening to it right now. I introduced a new channel, a new platform, a new whatever you want to call it, and I started a podcast. And it's called The Content Collective. Again, you might be listening to it right now. And the reason why I decided to start a podcast, I had quite a few people, actually a lot of people tell me to start a podcast a long time ago, but I personally didn't have the bandwidth to manage a podcast and I wasn't ready to outsource that kind of thing. And after a couple of mentors and a lot of people telling me, they're like, just take what you're producing on YouTube and put it out as a podcast, add a little extra here and there, season it up, kind of add some flavor to it. But essentially, I'm taking that content and giving it a different avenue for people that like to consume content on the go. You might be listening to this in your car, or maybe if you are watching it on YouTube, you're watching it on your mobile phone. But no matter what, I wanted to introduce this new channel so that people can consume my content in the way that suits them best. And that's the theme for 2024, is making sure that I'm showing up in the places where my audience needs me the most. Okay, so what exactly are my goals for this year? I have some big lofty ones, so let's get into it. Number-wise, I kind of already alluded to this. I'm really not focused on numbers and big growth on most of the platforms that I show up on, except for two. I really want to focus my efforts on growing my YouTube channel and my email list. Essentially, I want to double both by the end of the year. At the time of recording this, I'm really close to 5,000 subscribers on YouTube, and my big lofty goal is to have 10K by the end of the year. Again, this all goes back to what I learned last year. I've been showing up consistently on YouTube, and now I want to initiate a much bigger level of growth in the numbers. And then for my email list, I have about 3,500 subscribers there. I would love to double that-ish to around 6,000. Basically, I have a very large audience across all social media platforms, and I want to take that audience with me to something that I own, and that would be my email list. And I'm not at mercy of algorithms or, if TikTok decides to get shut down by the government, who knows? So we can't predict what's going to happen with these platforms, even here on YouTube, or even if you're listening on the podcast. I want to be able to connect with my community in a way that I can have a one-on-one interaction with them, again, not at the mercy of technology. Well, yes, my email is technology, but you get what I'm saying. Not at mercy of some big tech platforms, social media-wise. Big goal number 2, which is kind of sort of related to this content creation strategy overview here, is that I'm actually updating my course, the content system, to reflect everything I learned last year and to kind of show people the process of exactly how I take these hero pieces of content and create between 20 and 30 pieces of content a week on other platforms. So it'll be really fun to teach that strategy that I've perfected over the last year and want to continue going into. And again, I think the impact of this content strategy is very teachable, very accessible to a lot of small business owners that are in that season where they're really wanting to amplify and amp up their content creation. And I just want to be able to teach other people those systems. And the last goal here this year is I'm really having so much fun leaning into my niche. So for a long time, I was more of a cast the net very wide and like the fish will come kind of person. I'm like, okay, I can talk to the beginner. I can talk to the advanced person. I can do all kinds of content creation tips, talk about social media, whatever. Truly this year, I am really leaning into niching down and becoming that content strategist that you go to when you need help with organization and workflows and the why behind the things that you're doing. And not necessarily that you need a Canva tip or you need to know how to change the color on your Instagram story background. Because that is the type of content I was producing. It worked well for me, helped me grow a community, and I loved producing it, and you guys loved watching it. But now I'm entering a new season. And so, for instance, if anybody's familiar with this, when you go to take college level courses, there's like those 101, 201, like more of the undergraduate as you're getting your prereqs, things like that, those lower level college classes. That's kind of where my content was at. And there's nothing wrong with that. There are plenty of people out in social media that will continue to produce that content that you need if that's the level that you're at. And that's the kind of content you need to consume. But I'm kind of starting to step it up to level 300, level 400 classes because I want to teach you the why behind what you're doing and really start to give you the strategy and the structure, which kind of up levels it from me giving you content tips to, okay, here's why we are creating content in the first place. So now that you guys know my entire content strategy for 2024, I want to hear from you in the comments below, kind of what you're looking forward to with your content strategy this year. And if my strategy intrigues you a bit, make sure you guys sign up for the waitlist for the content system to know when enrollment for the course is open again. That's where you're going to learn how to produce 20 to 30 pieces of content each and every week based off of one hero piece. It's like a really cool system that I love and that I'm so proud of. Other than that, I will see you guys next week, and don't forget to hit subscribe.